Some people say family is everything, that no matter what happens, blood will always protect you. I used to believe that too. I believed it when I stayed up all night studying to make my parents proud. I believed it when I handed over my paycheck month after month, thinking I was securing love. But love doesn't drag you by your hair and leave you on the sidewalk, 7 months pregnant. This is not a story about what family gave me. It's a story about what they took and what I found when I had nothing left. Hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm 28 years old, and I used to think that being smart, independent, and loyal would one day earn me the love and respect I quietly craved. I was wrong. I'm a systems engineer in a well-known tech company. It's a fast-paced life full of back-to-back meetings, code reviews, and endless coffee. But I love it. I've always pushed myself not just to excel, but to matter, to be seen. I also freelance on the side, writing technical blogs, doing UI consultations, even hosting weekend webinars for junior developers. Between all my income sources, I bring in around $18,000 every month. And you'd think that kind of money would buy me freedom, wouldn't you? But no. For the past several years, I've been giving $12,000 every month to my parents, Amanda and Thomas. They don't ask, they just expect it. Mortgage, utilities, groceries, little luxuries, streaming subscriptions, it's all covered. They live in a decent two-story house in West Haven, and I used to live there too. Not out of need, but out of some twisted sense of duty. I thought maybe if I kept providing, they'd look at me the way they looked at Linda, my younger sister. Linda, she's always been the golden girl. Even when she dropped out of college, even when she refused to work, even when she brought shame to the family more than once, my mother still calls her my poor baby. While I, the one paying their bills, am often reduced to the other one. I never complained. Not out loud. Instead, I worked harder. I took double shifts, worked holidays, skipped vacations. I earned certifications they never asked about, and I paid for a roof they never thanked me for. I thought that maybe, just maybe, if I kept showing them I was worth something, they'd love me the same way they loved her. But that love never came. And then, one day, during a project kickoff call that was already 2 hours behind schedule, I met someone who looked at me like I was more than enough. Jackson. He was the new project manager brought in from another division. Calm under pressure, sharp, articulate, and surprisingly funny. He didn't just delegate. He noticed when I made a clever code suggestion. He praised it in front of the team. When I worked late on documentation, he stayed behind to help, and when I forgot to eat, he'd slide a protein bar across the desk with a smile. Jackson saw me. Not as the other daughter, not as a money machine, but as Rebecca. Jackson and I started spending more time together, both inside and outside of work. At first, it was all project meetings and post-print dinners. Then it became casual lunches, weekend hikes, late-night phone calls where we didn't talk about work at all. He wasn't just kind. He was consistent. He remembered little things. How I liked my coffee, that I hated surprise calls, that I sometimes zoned out when I was stressed. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was performing to be liked. I could just exist and be enough. 6 months into our relationship, he asked me to move in with him. I said yes. We rented a one-bedroom apartment on the east side of West Haven, closer to the city. It wasn't fancy, but it felt like ours. We shopped for furniture on weekends, argued playfully over which plants wouldn't die under my care, and learned each other's weird habits. I told my parents, and as expected, they didn't care. "You're moving in with a man before marriage?" My mother scoffed on the phone. "And you still have the audacity to send us less this month?" I sent the full amount. I replied quietly. She didn't even say goodbye before hanging up. Jackson never pressured me to cut ties, but when I started skipping visits, he didn't push me to go. "You don't owe anyone your peace," he once said, and I held on to those words like a lifeline. A year into our life together, he proposed. He didn't do it with candles or flash mobs, just a quiet night at home, our takeout containers between us, and a ring hidden under a napkin. I cried before I even saw it. We got married in a civil ceremony with a few close friends. Jackson offered to reach out to my parents, but I told him not to bother. They hadn't even congratulated me when I told them we were engaged. Just another cold. We hope you know what you're doing. And yet, I kept sending the $12,000. It's strange how guilt clings harder than love. Our married life was peaceful for a few months. Everything felt soft, safe. We built routines, shared dreams, and even began thinking about starting a family. Then, one rainy Friday, I felt different. Not sick, not tired, just different. A week later, 2 pink lines confirmed it. I was pregnant. Jackson was ecstatic. He picked me up and spun me around, nearly tripping over the coffee table. He kissed my forehead and whispered, "We're going to be great at this." And for a while, I believed it. But the happiness was short-lived. 2 weeks later, Jackson got the call. He was being sent to Canada on an urgent long-term assignment. We stayed up most of the night going back and forth. He didn't want to leave me alone, especially now. I told him I'd be fine, but we both knew I was lying. "I don't want you to be by yourself," he said, placing his hand gently on my stomach. "Promise me you'll go stay with your parents. I'll be back before the baby's here." I hesitated, not because I didn't want to be safe, but because I knew what home meant. Still, I agreed for the baby. I moved out of our apartment a few days before Jackson's flight. Packing felt heavier than usual, not just because of the boxes, but because of everything I was dragging back with me. Old memories. Old wounds. The silent ache of returning to a house where I never felt truly welcome. Jackson kissed my forehead at the airport. "I'll call you the moment I land," he promised. "Please don't hesitate to tell me anything, especially if they start treating you the way they used to." I nodded, but inside I already knew they never stopped treating me that way. When I arrived at my parents' home, Amanda opened the door with a face that looked like she was expecting a package, not her pregnant daughter. "Oh," she said flatly. "You came?" "Jackson thought I shouldn't be alone," I said. She stepped aside, didn't hug me, didn't even ask how I was feeling. My father, Thomas, gave a small nod from the sofa, barely glancing up from the news. "I'll stay in my old room," I said. Amanda crossed her arms. "Linda might be back soon. We haven't decided where she'll sleep. But she's married," I said, confused. She didn't respond. Instead, she walked into the kitchen like the conversation didn't matter. They only allowed me to stay because I reminded them, politely of course, that I was still sending them $12,000 every month. Amanda's tone shifted then, just slightly. "Well, in that case, we'll figure something out." And so began my time back in that house. I was 2 months pregnant then. The plan was to stay for a few months, just until Jackson came back or until we found another apartment I could safely manage alone. But within 3 weeks, everything began to fall apart. Linda came back, no warning, no explanation, just bags, perfume, and that same entitled air she always carried like a crown. Her husband was too controlling, she said. She needed space. Our parents nodded like she'd announced the weather. Then she looked at me, at my belly, and smirked. "Didn't waste any time, huh?" I didn't reply. The next morning, Linda announced she was pregnant too. I didn't believe her. Something about her tone, her eyes, it felt off. But Amanda cried tears of joy, hugged her, and started planning a nursery for her. Not for me. I had to share a room with boxes in the hallway, while Linda took mine. I protested quietly. Amanda snapped. "You're grown. You'll be fine. Linda needs comfort right now." Every day, the tension built. Linda would nitpick how I walked, what I ate, how I breathed. If I rested too long, she'd say I was lazy. If I worked on my laptop, she'd say I was acting like I was better than everyone else. Every fight ended with Amanda taking her side. Thomas would just sit there, staring at the TV, like the volume wasn't full of anger. I called Jackson often, trying to stay strong. "I miss you," I'd whisper through tears. "I miss you more," he'd say. "Just a few more months, Rebecca. Then we'll be together in our own place, just you, me, and the baby." I held on to that promise like it was air because every day in that house, it felt like I was suffocating a little more. By the time I entered my 7th month of pregnancy, the house felt less like shelter and more like a storm cloud I couldn't escape. My belly had grown, my feet ached, and sleep came in fragments. But what truly exhausted me was the constant battle for space, peace, and dignity. Linda's fake pregnancy became the centerpiece of every conversation. Amanda pampered her endlessly, herbal teas, special cushions, prenatal vitamins, the works. They hadn't even asked me how I was feeling. One afternoon, Linda was sprawled across the couch, loudly watching a reality show when I walked past, holding my lower back. She looked up. "You're waddling like a penguin," she said, laughing. I ignored her. "Oh, right," she added. "You think you're the only pregnant one around here?" I turned to her and said calmly, "Because I actually am." Amanda overheard and stormed into the room. "What are you trying to say?" I didn't want to fight. I just wanted space, rest, safety. But they wouldn't let me have that. Jackson called almost every night. I tried not to worry him, but I had to be honest. "They're making things worse," I told him. "I feel like I don't even matter." His voice, though halfway across the continent, wrapped around me like a shield. "I'll be home as soon as I can, Rebecca. I've already applied for early release from the assignment. Once I'm there, we'll get a new place, and this nightmare will end. I promise." I held my belly and whispered, "Did you hear that, baby? Daddy's coming." But fate didn't wait for him. It happened the next morning. I walked into the living room to find Amanda folding laundry on the coffee table. My maternity clothes were tossed and wrinkled like rags. "These were cluttering the closet," she said coldly. I stepped forward. "Those were folded in my room." Linda stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "I told Mom I needed more space," she said. She agreed. I clenched my fists. "This is my house too. I pay for this house." Amanda's eyes narrowed. "You think money gives you rights? You think you're better than us just because you send a check every month." "I give $12,000 to this house," I said firmly. "Every month. And you treat me like I'm in the way." The room went still. Linda smirked. Thomas, as always, looked away. Then Amanda's face twisted into something unrecognizable. In one fast, brutal motion, she grabbed a wooden photo frame from the shelf and swung it at me. It hit my right shoulder hard enough to make me stumble back against the wall. I gasped, cradling my stomach. "Stop, I'm pregnant, please don't." But Amanda wasn't done. She grabbed me by the hair, pulled with full force, and dragged me across the floor, yelling, "Get out. You've always acted like a queen in someone else's home." My body screamed in pain, but I wrapped my arms around my belly and begged her to stop. The front door flew open as she shoved me out and slammed it shut behind me. I collapsed on the porch, gasping for air, hair tangled, shoulder throbbing, and my hands instinctively protecting the one thing that still mattered, my baby. And then I heard a car door slam. Someone ran toward me. Oh my God, Rebecca. It was Olivia, our neighbor. I saw what she did. I saw everything. "Don't move. I'm taking you to the hospital." The drive to the hospital felt endless, though Olivia drove like her own life depended on it. I sat slumped in the passenger seat, trembling, one arm holding my bruised shoulder, the other still cradling my belly. The pain was sharp, but what terrified me more than anything else was the question that wouldn't leave my mind. Was my baby okay? Olivia kept glancing at me, her voice tight with worry. "Stay with me, Rebecca. We're almost there." I nodded, barely. Can you call my husband? His name is Jackson. He's in Canada. His number's in my phone." She grabbed my phone, unlocked it, and hit the number labeled "My Love." I couldn't hear what he was saying on the other end, but Olivia's words came fast. "Jackson, this is Olivia. I'm your wife's neighbor. She's been assaulted." "Yes, by her mother. I'm taking her to the ER now. Please come as soon as you can." She paused, then nodded. "Okay, yes. I'll stay with her. Don't worry." When we reached the ER, nurses rushed toward the car and helped me into a wheelchair. The overhead lights, the antiseptic air, the beeping monitors, it all blurred together. In the exam room, a female doctor with soft eyes took my hand. "You're safe now, Rebecca. We'll take care of everything." They ran ultrasounds, checked my vitals, and monitored the baby. After what felt like forever, She smiled gently. The baby's heartbeat is strong. He's okay. I broke down sobbing. Olivia hugged me gently, like someone who truly cared, unlike the family I was born into. I've called security, she said softly. They're documenting everything, and I'm not going anywhere until your husband gets here. True to her word, Olivia stayed with me all night. She brought me water, adjusted the blanket, talked to the doctors, and even called Jackson again to update him on the situation. Jackson arrived a day and a half later, breathless, eyes red with worry. He rushed into the room and dropped to his knees beside my bed. "Rebecca," he whispered, taking my hand and kissing it. "I'm so sorry. I should have never let you go back there." I shook my head. "You didn't know." "I didn't know." His voice cracked. "They could have killed you. They could have hurt our son." Then I said what had been bubbling up inside me since the moment Amanda hit me. "I want to press charges. I want justice." He didn't even blink. "We'll file everything, and I'm not leaving your side." The hospital's legal advocate helped us begin the process. Olivia agreed to testify as a witness. Security footage from nearby homes had already been shared with the police, and the doctor's report clearly described the bruising, swelling, and the emotional trauma sustained during the attack. 2 days after I was admitted, I was released with strict instructions to rest, stay stress-free, and avoid any stares or strain. Jackson took me straight to a hotel near the courthouse. From there, we met with a legal team. Our lawyer filed charges for felony assault on a pregnant woman, domestic violence, reckless endangerment, and complicity against Thomas and Linda. 2 days later, the police arrived at my parents' house. Amanda, Thomas, and Linda were arrested. Linda screamed. Amanda looked smug at first, until she realized we weren't bluffing. That this time, I wasn't crying and walking away. I was fighting back. The court hearing was scheduled quickly, partially because of the severity of the assault and partially due to the overwhelming evidence stacked against them. When we entered the courtroom, I was 8.5 months pregnant. My belly was heavy, but I walked tall, Jackson by my side and Olivia behind me, calm and steady like a guardian angel. Amanda, Thomas, and Linda were led in by officers. Amanda's jaw clenched like stone. Linda avoided my gaze. Thomas looked down, perhaps realizing too late that his silence was a betrayal all on its own. The judge didn't need much convincing. Olivia's eyewitness testimony was clear. The medical report left no doubts. The security footage captured me being dragged out of the house by my hair, and my own voice, shaking but firm, on the stand sealed their fate. I looked right at Amanda when I spoke. "I spent years giving you my money, my time, my loyalty, and all I ever wanted was to be treated like a daughter. You couldn't even do that when I was carrying your grandchild." A quiet silence settled across the room. The judge's words felt like a closing chapter in my soul. The verdict: Amanda, 5 years in state prison for felony assault and domestic violence against a pregnant woman. Linda, 2 years for false testimony and complicity. Thomas, 18 months for failure to intervene and enabling abuse, plus a financial penalty. As they were led away, Amanda screamed. Linda cried. Thomas said nothing. I didn't feel triumph. I felt release. Less than 2 weeks later, my body began to contract early one December morning. Jackson rushed me to the hospital, this time with joy, not panic. The same nurses from last time welcomed me with smiles and encouragement. The pain was sharp, but it came with hope, not fear. At 2:12 p.m. on a snowy Wednesday, I gave birth to a beautiful, healthy baby boy. We named him Leo. Jackson held him first, then gently placed him on my chest. "He looks like you," he whispered. I stared at our son, his tiny fingers wrapping around my thumb, and felt a wave of something pure and infinite. Peace. Jackson didn't take us back to my parents' house. Not even close. He had already arranged for a new apartment in a safe, quiet part of town. It had a nursery filled with soft yellows and grays, a rocking chair by the window, and sunlight that spilled onto the floor each morning. Olivia visited a week later. She brought homemade muffins, tiny socks for Leo, and a hug that didn't need words. I thanked her again, from the bottom of my heart. We didn't talk about the trial or the past. We just looked forward. A few weeks later, I found a letter in the mail. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. Amanda's. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Some chapters are better left closed. Instead, I sat by the window, Leo asleep in my arms, and began writing him a letter of my own. Dear Leo, you saved me before you were even born. You gave me strength when I had none left. I promise you this. I will love you in every way I was not. Your life will never be about paying for anyone else's approval. You are enough. You always will be. I folded the letter, kissed his forehead, and watched as the wind gently nudged the curtain beside me. Outside, the spring breeze stirred petals across the sidewalk. Inside, I finally felt home. A full year had passed since that winter evening when I held Leo for the first time. Time had softened some memories, blurred others, but one thing had remained vivid: the sound of silence from the people who once called themselves my family. Amanda, Thomas, and Linda had been in prison for months now. From time to time, letters arrived in the mail, mostly from Amanda. They always came without return addresses, and I never opened them. I didn't need apologies written by someone who only felt sorry when the consequences finally arrived. Jackson would sometimes hold one up and ask, "Want me to burn this one?" I'd smile softly. "No, just put it in the drawer with the others." But not everything from the past stayed unwelcome. Olivia had become more than a neighbor.
She was now like family.
She visited often, brought over homemade soup, helped hold Leo when I needed to take client calls. She even offered to babysit when Jackson and I went out for our first proper date night in over a year. Then came Leo's first birthday. We didn't throw a big party, just a small celebration at home with a white and blue cake, a candle shaped like the number 1, and the three of us laughing in the soft afternoon light. After Leo drifted off to sleep, I sat by the window with my journal and began writing. It wasn't a social media post. It wasn't for Jackson. It was for myself. Dear me, you survived what others didn't even see coming. You were rejected by the ones who should have protected you. You found strength in your child. You built a home from ashes, and you learned that blood doesn't make you family. Love does. Be proud, Rebecca. You broke the cycle. As I closed the journal, Jackson came and stood behind me, placing his hands on my shoulders. I still can't believe how far we've come. I can, I said without hesitation. We looked at Leo, sleeping peacefully in his crib, a soft mobile turning slowly above his head. Outside, the West Haven skyline sparkled in the dusk. Inside, the past had no place, only hope and a future I now controlled. Thank you for watching the story. If it touched your heart or made you think, don't forget to give it a like. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment and tell us how you felt. If you enjoy stories like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more powerful content every week. Your support means the world. Until next time, stay strong, stay kind, and stay true to yourself.